guys, it is Christine. Welcome to my channel. I am a homeschooling mama of 3, and here I like to share all homeschool content, things that I'm learning, our journey along the way. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you here. You can also check me out on Instagram. I have an account over there. I'm kind of useless with social media. Little known fact about me, I'm an introvert and I like social media, but then like when things get crazy and stuff, I kind of just like to go into my shell. I'm not someone who likes to just share everything about how I might be struggling or feeling or whatever. So sometimes I'm like terrible about sharing on there, but I try to be a little bit consistent. So if you want to see a little bit more of an in-depth day in our home and things like that, go ahead and check me out there. I'm trying to be better about posting stuff, at least on stories. Stories are kind of easy, but it's just not something I always think about doing. So confession time. Anyway, today I want to talk to you about the hard parts of homeschooling, because I know that like you hear about the hard parts of homeschooling from parents who don't homeschool. Like they're like, I never had the patience to do that, or my relationship with my child isn't good enough to do that. But like from actual homeschool parents, you don't always hear it. And I think sometimes we do that because my kids are being so loud, because we don't want to put a negative light on homeschooling. You know, we want to encourage it and we want to paint it in a really good light. And it is a really good thing. Like you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who is more positive and just encouraging about homeschooling than I am, because I was homeschooled. It's such a brilliant experience, and I am passionate about homeschooling my kids. Like, I love it. It's one of the things that lights up my world. I absolutely love it. But it's not to say that it doesn't have its hard parts. And I will say that for me personally, the hardest parts have got nothing to do with my kids. It's all about me and my attitude and my flaws. And I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, because I see it as a refining fire. Like it's a way to work on myself and draw me closer to God and help me walk closer to where I want to be as a person, and not just being like okay with all those flaws, you know. It's okay to accept ourselves as not being perfect, but it doesn't mean that we don't do anything about it, you know. Does that make sense? So I just jotted down a few things. There's not that many, but a few things that I personally struggle with homeschooling that I find to be the hardest parts. And do bear in mind, we're like in our first proper year of homeschooling, so I'm sure that these will change over the years. But for right now, this is where I am. And also just another quick disclaimer, these are my personal struggles. It doesn't mean these are universal. It doesn't mean that every homeschool mom struggles with these. Yours are probably entirely different from mine if you're a homeschool mom, and that's okay. But I'm just, you know, sharing what I feel about the situation, and I'd be curious to know if you can relate. Let me know down in the comments for sure if you can relate to any of these. And yeah, it's nice to chat about stuff instead of be like, oh yeah, me too. Yeah, that's totally me. So let me get stuck into it. Number 1 is just probably like the budget factor. And part of this is because we live in New Zealand, which is the bottom of the world, and it means that shipping is just extremely expensive in most cases. And it also means like our supplies here are fairly limited. Like the amount of curriculum available in the United States is just mind-boggling, and I am so deeply thankful that homeschoolers have those options available to them, because certainly when my mother was homeschooling, it was not like that. And maybe that was also because we didn't really have social media, and so you didn't hear about things as easily as you otherwise would have. Now you go onto YouTube and there's like a gazillion curriculum recommendations and stuff like that, and it can be really hard to sift through all of that. But back in the day, that was not the case. So for me, it's like you see stuff and I love it and I want to use it, but it is just so expensive. And I will especially say that's the case for books. Like I see books and I would love to just fill my house with them, but it's pricey. Like it's really hard to afford it. And that's part of the reason that I love companies that provide PDF options. So like Simply Charlotte Mason offers basically everything in a PDF download, and that's been such a huge blessing to me, because I can buy it and print it off using my printer and bind it at home, and then we can have that curriculum to use, and it's like a fraction of the cost of what it would be to like have it sent in hard copy to where I live. I have the Epsom EcoTank for $7.50. It's incredible. Like incredible. I have printed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of color pages, and it's only like half the ink use. It's great. I'll link it down below. Like, honestly, could not recommend it more. And the other company that I've used like that is The Good and the Beautiful. I've got their math. We've toyed around with their language arts. I actually just recently did a video about that, and I can link that for you. And so, yeah, that's a big blessing to me because just the budget thing is hard. And here in New Zealand, you do get some funding from the government, but it's not to cover curriculum costs. It's technically to cover the time you're spending caring, like teaching your kids, which it's not even close. But it's not something we would either argue about either, because like we have a lot of freedom here in New Zealand to homeschool our kids. There's not a lot of regulations or like you put in your exemption, and once it's approved, that's it. Basically, there's no testing, there's no like follow-up or anything, which is a huge blessing. And so it's not something I'd be pushing to change anytime soon. But that funding also doesn't kick in until your child turns 6. I totally lost track of where it was, but basically, yeah, it's the budget thing. Oh yeah, that's what it is. The funding doesn't kick in until your child turns 6, and Jack's only 5. So this year's all been like self-funded, which is fine. It's totally fine. Even if we weren't given any funding, I would still choose to homeschool any day of the week. Okay, second struggle of mine is FOMO. Like, seriously, YouTube is both a blessing and a curse, because you can see all these stunning curriculum options, like the way that you can go about doing things, morning baskets, routines, all these kinds of things, and they're amazing and inspiring. But it can be a real temptation to constantly feel like you have to switch up things and change things around because you want to try this and you want to try that, and that can be really disruptive to your homeschool. So just that whole thing of like realizing if it's working, why change it? It's okay to try things out, but I feel like it can be really hard, like for kids to have things switched out constantly. So that's a struggle of mine, is like resisting the urge to go ahead and try other things. Number 3 is taking breaks. I love schooling. I would sit down and do it, but obviously my son's really young, and so I have to like stop, and we have to take breaks frequently. And the reality is I have a 19-month-old as well and a 3-year-old, and they're disruptive. They just are. It's just the name of the game that's not really going to change anytime soon, and so I have to be really flexible about stopping when it's just not working and everyone's getting stressed. And I find that difficult because I am like such a type A personality. I just want to sit down and get things done. I'm not rigid in the sense that we have to do this at this time and this at this time. We have 15 minutes for that. Like, that's not me. I have like a time-ish where we start and we just do a gentle like rhythm. But still, even when that's disrupted, it can be hard and I struggle with it. But I have to remind myself it's okay. It's okay. It's okay if we like stop for the day if it's not working. But yeah, it can be a little bit tricky for me. The next one I struggle with is probably like my excitement for a subject may not carry through to my kids. Like, I might be so excited to start this new curriculum or this new book, and they're just not into it. And that can be really, like, sad. Because I feel like when you're a homeschool mom, you get, like, this whole renewed energy for learning, and you just appreciate it so much more than when you did when you were a kid. And then when your own kids aren't into that, you're like, don't you understand? This is like so exciting. So yeah, that could be a little bit challenging. For the most part, my kids are very excited to learn, and like, because I try and pick things that they're going to be interested in and that are short and sweet and to the point. But yeah, it can be a little rough sometimes. I will say the other thing that I struggle with, and I didn't actually put this on my list originally, but it is something I really struggle with, and that is the lack of space to store homeschool supplies. We live in a small home. It's not teeny tiny, but it's not huge. I don't know what it is in square feet. It's like 100 square meters. I think it might be just over 1,000 square feet, I think. So it's not massive. It's a 3-bedroom house, but our living area is quite small and we do not have a lot of storage. I purchased a bookshelf last year, which we've managed to squeeze into our playroom, which is just like a little alcove off of our living room. And my darling husband's going to be building me a like bench seat around our dining room area that's going to have storage. So that's where I'm planning on putting like a ton of our homeschool supplies and books, the things that we use every day, because we do school at the dining room table. But it is hard not having more room, because I would love to have more arts and craft supplies, like books and things like that. But I honestly just don't have anywhere to put them. And right now, my 19-month-old gets into everything. It's just rough. She climbs onto everything. She's obsessed with the toilet brush, and like if the doors aren't shut, and so just like the thought of having paint anywhere near where she might like be able to get to it, yeah, it's terrifying. So it's probably a problem with like lack of storage and also just the age she's at right now. I'm sure it will get better in the future, but right now it's a little rough. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to comment on is just patience. And this is something that a lot of non-homeschooling parents will say, oh, I can never do that. I don't have the patience. The reality is I don't have the patience either, but it's something that I depend on God for, and I'm trusting that He will improve that flaw in me. And if I allow Him to do it, then it will get better. And it's just like anything, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. And I can have patience in certain areas. Like if my child is struggling with learning a concept, it doesn't faze me at all. Like I have all the patience in the world. If they're not paying attention to what I'm trying to teach them, my patience ends like really, really quickly. And so it's in certain areas that I struggle. And that's definitely something that I want to be working on myself, is just, having patience, being a kind and joyful mother. And this extends to all facets of motherhood. It's not just homeschooling my kids. I was watching Suzanne Hines from The Glorious Mundane on Instagram. She's lovely. I've followed her for a long time now, and I just so appreciate her content. And she does like a hybrid homeschool. She homeschools part-time, and her daughter attends a hybrid school as well. But she said something that I so agreed with, and it was that whatever kind of mother you are is the kind of homeschool mother you're going to be. You don't change the kind of person you are when you're teaching your children. It doesn't. Like, the same flaws, the same weaknesses, the same strengths that you have as a mother and as a person are going to be the same things you have when you're homeschooling your kids. So, yeah, however flawed you are right now, that's not going to change unless you are proactive about it and allow yourself to be changed and strengthened. And, I think motherhood in general allows that to happen, but homeschooling definitely adds another layer to that. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wonder if you can relate to it at all. Let me know your biggest struggle down below as a homeschool mom. What's something that just can be a real bugbear for you and that you have to work through and that you want to work on. Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye. Your smile. What if the wind could spread your love? What if your sweetness could reach everyone? There'd be no war.